All right, let's try that again. No, well,
You're
not on
not.
Zoom, but I was muted on OBS, so I still have to fix some
Ouch.
things from the OBS upgrade. So hey, me too. Thanks for letting me know it was muted. Hi everybody, I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website, Tech Interview Guide. Today we're joined with Praveen, who's based over in the UK. And this is exactly why I moved my stream to earlier on Sundays, so I can have amazing conversation with folks from around the world. That's a little friendlier in their time zone than what I would normally do in the evening at nighttime. So me too. Thanks for dropping by. Good to see you in chat. I haven't seen you in a little bit. So Praveen is our guest today. They are currently a technical director. They are also huge on YouTube right now. So go check out Praveen's content. He's got what close. You're almost at 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. So like props to you for putting in the effort on that. You mentioned it's taken a little bit to get there, so we're gonna chat with Praveen about his journey into tech and hear from his perspective about career preparation and so on, because you also do career prep work on YouTube and you work with different
That's right.
organizations and so on. So I was really looking forward to having this chat today. So let's start and just give you the mic for a little bit. So tell us about you. Tell us about your background. How did you get into tech? Let's start with like the most basics of like, how'd you even get into programming? Like, how did all that start?
Definitely. So basically, I'm from India. I'm from Chennai and currently living and working in London. So during my school times, I guess during my mid school, we have got this 12 years of school education, and then we have got 4 years of college education, which you can call it as like, okay, I guess 12 plus 4 thing. So
Mhm.
16 years of education. So in my second standard, which is around like sixth year of my schooling, not sixth year, fourth year of my schooling, I got into like generally in India, people go to their grandma's house for playing all the games during the annual holidays, vacations, and I got to play something like Dangerous Dave and other things. So I had this real, like the tough times to. Beat my sister who was getting the best scores, etc. So okay, fine, I can't play in the game, so I have to think something else, and I found something like a dscore Dave file. So that's actually a file that stores all the scores. I mean, by the name of the file, I could say, okay, this is the file I need to attack. And when I saw it, it is not human readable.
Mhm.
At that point of time, I had one of my uncles who is a specialist, and he was saying something about hex editor, hexadecimal editor. Any computer's file might be a binary file, and if you want to see the contents of the binary file, you have to use something like hex editor. So I tried opening it with that. I tried to understand what hexadecimal numbers means, that 0 to 9, A to F, and then wow, something actually struck so interesting to me. That was the time I got so much interested into the computers, coding, etc., etc. And from sixth standard onwards, that is like my eighth or ninth year of schooling. From that time onwards, I started working on something like my one of. I need to tell this to everyone. Like anytime when I try to talk to someone, I would say there is this Bhaskar uncle who is my neighbor, and he gave me this book called amazing book called Learn Visual Basics 6 in Record Time by Steve Brown. And from sixth and seventh standard, I used to work on like VB6, and it was great. I created my own encyclopedia. Then I
Wow.
came to know that okay, it is an executable file, and it is going to run only on your local Windows machine. It is not going to run on anything else. So I thought, okay, I should convert it into something else. At that point of time, I came to know there is something called as Classic ASP, and there is a web outside. So I converted all the code which I wrote as an executable application to
Okay.
ASP VB script, and that was a huge breakthrough for me. So I learned a bit of HTML and CSS. To be honest, I wrote my first CSS using JavaScript. That's the worst thing a web developer can say. And I did those things, and then later I realized that if I want to publish my website to the whole world, I need to pay for Windows servers. And back in, let's say, 1999, when I got my first computer and other things, so the average cost of hosting Windows servers will be like around $10 per month. I
Mm.
couldn't even think of getting 0.001 sorry $0.01 at that time for getting even a chocolate or something.
Right. Right.
That was my financial situation. So this was like completely no go for me. that time someone said that there is something called as LampStack. It's Linux, Apache,
MStack,
MySQL, and
yeah,
PHP.
yeah.
The savior of a lot of people nowadays. So I went into that. I initially hated it because Visual Basic is like completely English, whereas LampStack is like, PHP coding. That was the first time ever I looked into a code, like purest form of coding style, like programming,
Awesome.
coding, etc. And then there is this book, right? So this was the best books for a lot of people who starts with anything for dummies. So I got this Learn PHP 5 for Dummies by Janet Valladay, and I believe she's still alive and around. I need to meet her once because she was the one who gave me the confidence that okay, I can do something really awesome. So I dedicated all my time till 2014 on PHP and MySQL, and by 2020 10, sorry, not 2014, 2004, and by 2010 I was able to create a social network kind of a thing for keeping
Awesome.
my friends connected and stuff. No one understood what I actually did, so it was gone. Then recently in 2015, then I was working with a big conglomerate in India for about like 3 years. I was mainly focusing on my front end development skills while I know the back end is PHP and MySQL. Then later on, I came to the UK for 2 years. And in the UK, I was like, I got a kind of a clash between Facebook, the company which created React.js, and I said like, okay, I'll tell about that scenario later. So that way, I was like a week's time. I was working with them as a bootcamp, and there I learned something called as React.js. Initially, I hated it, but later on, React became my girlfriend. So that's my quick story, and now I'm a complete React.js, Node.js specialist working on MERN-Stack, and I'm writing code for almost all the banks, like the financial fintech corporations. For the past 6 years, I have been into fintech. Now I'm an associate director of engineering.
That's cool. So the MERN-Stack is Mongo, Express, React, and Node, right? For
I would say it is MySQL, Express, React, and Node.
Okay. Using MySQL
I mean, like
instead of Mongo. Okay.
Yeah, we don't use Mongo in the enterprise level, so we use MySQL or Oracle. So MySQL is the best thing. So looking at the chats. Oh, hey, me too. Yes,
me too. Me too. Would love some background on your League of Legends T-shirt as well.
Oh, sure. I just had a look at. I mean, there is this local shop here, Primark, and I found this one super cool. It's a gaming T-shirt, so I thought of like, let me grab it, and yeah.
When I
wish I had a Harry Potter T-shirt, but yeah.
When I worked at SendGrid, I was in the office one day, and like everyone's like clustered around this machine, and I hear these commentators going on, and I'm like, are they watching a soccer game or something like that? And there's like a crowd of like a dozen engineers huddled around this one person's screen, and they're all like cheering, and I'm like, are they watching like World Cup over there? Like, what are they watching? And I lean over, and they're watching like this League of Legends competition. And I'm like, really? Like, of all the things you could be watching, like everyone's like sitting around watching other people play video games. I'm like, that's odd. Like, wouldn't you just want to play the video game yourself?
I went to actually get a Harry Potter T-shirt, but unfortunately I got only this, so it sounded similar. So I thought of like it's with gold and other things. Yeah, it looked really.
Well, for what it's worth, I'm wearing a Batman T-shirt today from the latest Batman movie. So
Vengeance, yeah. Awesome.
Good deal. Me Too says PHP MySQL was first. Still find something I fall back on when I don't need anything special. Yeah, for sure.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, like almost all the 90% of all the servers are LampStack servers, which are shared servers. Still remember cPanel? I guess cPanel.
Oh, cPanel, yeah. I actually wrote my own. I wrote my own like version of cPanel for a while because cPanel did so much stuff, and I'm like, I don't need all this other stuff. I only need like this small subset of like build email accounts and like do the virtualization, like the virtual host stuff on Apache and get all that stuff set up. So I actually wrote my own software where I just had command line interface of like add a client, put in their domain name, and it set everything up for me. And yeah, so I actually ran my own web hosting business for many years. and had
Oh
to
my
write
god,
all
I
that
did.
automation and figure out how to do spam with Spam Assassin and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun back in the day, but even I got to a point where it's like I don't even want to deal with like building my own email server anymore, and I just moved everything over to Gmail. So
Yeah,
yeah, good
and
times.
my thing was like back in those days we had Cake PHP and Symfony, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was doing a lot of things. So I did my own Praveen Tech framework.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I
that's
think
a
I think
PHP based
every
framework.
you know what, I think every engineer gets to the point of they're like, oh, this framework is so bloated, I'm gonna like start my own, and then that one gradually builds up, and then someone else that's been using that for years, they're like, oh, this thing's too bloated, I'm gonna go build my own,
Exactly.
and like, that's why we have like new frameworks coming out all the time. I like to joke on my stream that in the time it takes us to stream today, we're gonna see 3 new JavaScript frameworks get released. So
That's
um
true.
yeah. So you worked your way up to a director level role. How involved are you in like hiring and interviewing and stuff? And we'll get into that a little bit more. But just do you actually actively take part in interviewing and sort of screening people and things like that at your job?
Yes, I do a lot,
Cool.
and the way I conduct interviews are totally interactive and interesting because I don't go through DSA or anything. So
Mm,
that's one of the things I hate the most. So let's say if there is a person who has got a lead code score of like say 100 or 200, I have got zero clue about what lead code is. And even if I have the top lead coders or top hacker rankers, etc., as we are not, I mean, like I have seen around like what 8 years of development time with me. Like I'm a hardcore coder,
mm,
and when I work on it, I never use any DSA or anything. All I use is emmet and all these shortcuts, and as quick as possible. See, I'm the main reason why I always rely on um, shortcuts and snippets is whatever you do, you cannot go wrong in that. See,
mm.
you have an idea, you want to create a, like, being a web developer, you have got a this is the website, this is what you want to create, so you know the semantics of what you need to put here. So
Right.
with that being said, you cannot go wrong with the thing if you start automating things. But if you start manually typing stuff like using the angle brackets and HTML and stuff, you might forget to close the angle brackets and stuff like that. So these are a couple of things that can be avoided if you are automating these things.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the interesting thing too, is like people talk all the time about like, oh, we don't actually do these kinds of data structures and algorithms on the job, but
Yeah.
we're expected to jump through these hoops, as part of the interview. Like I tell people on the stream all the time, I've been a professional engineer now for 26 years. I've implemented recursion twice in production,
Wow.
and I made a trie, like a prefix tree, once my entire career.
Oh,
And yet we do this stuff all the time in the interviews, and it's so unrelated to what we actually do on a regular basis. Like, why do we make people jump through those kinds of hoops? Like, I get it, you want people that can think algorithmically, but one of the best interviews that I did was in this past January, where they're like, hey, go, like, what language do you want to use? I'm like, Python. They're like, cool, pull down the request library. We want you to hit this endpoint, pull down some JSON data and manipulate it and do
as
some
simple
math.
as
I'm
that.
like, sweet. I'm like, this is exactly what I want to do. Like, and it was mirrored to really mimic like what they do on the job every day. I'm like, that's perfect. Like, that's exactly what an interview should be.
And that's exactly what happened with one of the biggest banks. I don't want to name it. It starts with C or it ends with C.
Yeah.
And they gave
It has
a,
letters and vowels in the name, but we're not going to
yeah,
say
yeah,
which
yeah, it
ones. Yeah,
starts, yeah, it doesn't have any vowels, all consonants. It starts with J and ends with C, one of the top.
right,
After
right.
this, I'll be killed. Okay, so this company, one of the teams interviewed me and they gave me a crazy thing related to fintech. Okay, I'll try to like reduce the complexity and ask. So, if at all you're getting a mortgage, and how are you going? This is the complete mathematical things, and I'm totally bad with mathematics, so I informed them beforehand. So they gave me the formulae and other things. So with that being said, um, so there is this person who is taking a mortgage for 10 years and at the rate of this one. So can you show the complete graph or like something like that? And
Mm.
that was my task.
Yeah,
Great, this is what I was looking
right.
for, because I'm also trying to buy a house, so I need to know how these things work. So
Right.
both simple and compound interest. So that's exactly the interview should be, because it's purely coding. That is exactly what we will be doing in the workplace as well. It's not about data structures and algorithms anymore.
Right. Yep.
So
I agree.
yeah.
I agree. Cool. We got a whole bunch of folks dropping by. Full Snable, good to see you. RC Maniac, good to see you in chat as well. Happen to be
Hi,
awake.
everyone.
I can't stay forever. That's all right. My chats usually put you to sleep anyway, RC, so it's all good. Cool. Well, let's dive back in on some history stuff. So we talked about how you got into coding, and my journey was very similar. My dad came home with a Commodore 64. This was back in 1982.
Wow.
August of 82, so I just passed
Oh,
40
I was
years.
not even born then.
Yeah, for me it's been 40 years and I'm only 48. He came home with this thing when I was 8 years old, and I taught myself the basic programming language because I was doing the same thing. I was like hacking the saved games or hacking the actual source of the game of like, oh, I always die too fast, so like how can I increase my life or give myself more bullets in this shooter kind of game or whatever, like, and figure out like how do I hack those games. And then I'm like, I just want 1 billion bullets or something, and then it totally crashes everything because the computer didn't know how to handle a number that big. And it's like, well, why does it, I said I wanted 10,000 bullets and it only gave me like 300. Like what happened there? And like learning about integer wrapping and all that kind of stuff was really interesting as a kid. And then that carried with me. I'm like, this is amazing. I want to do this as a grown-up. And it kind of stuck with me. So you've talked about kind of your journey into tech. How did that lead into starting your YouTube channel? So you've been on YouTube now for 6 or 7 years. You got almost 10,000 subscribers. By the way, go follow Praveen on YouTube. Let me pull up all the links over here. Got his LinkedIn, got his YouTube, got his website. Please go give him a follow. Go subscribe on YouTube. How did you get started with YouTube and the idea of like making videos and so on, and like everything from short videos now to like the pre-recorded sorts of things? Like how did you get into that?
So first thing is, I did not have an active YouTube account for the past before 2 years. So it's been 2 years since I moved to London, 2 or
Okay.
3 years, I guess. And I'm bad with mathematics. 2019 end, I moved to London. Until then, I had a dormant account in YouTube, and there
Okay.
were like maximum two subscribers in that. And the maximum thing I do in YouTube is like, I once was working with Pusher. They wanted me to make a demo. That was one of the worst demos. It's still available on the YouTube as my first ever video. Just want a memory how bad I was back then, and now I am good. And
great.
yeah, so that was the only reason I had my YouTube channel there, and to just host one video. And then after moving to London, I met this awesome person called Eddie Jordy. I believe a lot of people in India, they know, because he's one of the open source gurus ever. And the reason why I know him is, so the first company in London for me was an analytics company, a game analytics company. And for that, I had to learn something called as Cypress, and I had got zero clue about it. The next day, I saw there was a meetup in London, Microsoft Reactor. Oh, Microsoft Cypress, my work. So let me go and check it out. At that point of time, Eddie was the host. It was through Code Mortals. Oh, damn, I could have got my Code Mortals t-shirt. Anyway, and those people, they were like, I explained Eddie everything. This is what I was looking for. I have got zero clue, but at the same time, I have got stage fear, etc., etc. So Eddie said, like, come to the stage. You are the one who is going to solve all these things and teach everyone how this one. So because he knows that I love to teach people, but I have not got this like the outgoing personality or anything. I look so bad with my face and other things. So even that was like a disappointment for me. I'm not as beautiful as others here. And with all that, he said, like, you're going to take the session. So this is we are putting the trust on you. And so it was really good. I learned the complete thing in less than an hour, because learning something practically makes it a huge difference, right? So
absolutely,
that is something which I always follow. And Eddie was the person who asked me to, like, he usually, then we became so close. Every time when he conducts a meetup, I'll go there and I will be a host as well. And that gave me a superb confidence not overconfidence. And he used to capture everything and put it in a YouTube video. And that was the first time he also told we can do live streams using YouTube. And uh, from then onwards, I started doing live streams. The first ever live stream was in collaboration. First few live streams were collaboration with Eddie, and he was using something like a vmix or something like that, and he taught me all these things. Then he also gave me an idea about like how OBS works, and a lot of things. Then later on I started making it more and more better, and then now I'm here this way.
Yep, that's great. Yeah, I remember the first time I watched a live video on YouTube, I'm like, oh, you can do more than just like pre-record and so on. I think my first couple of live videos were just like, I'm gonna put a camera on my 3D printer so I can actually watch my 3D printer while I'm at
Right.
work. And I think those were my first couple, or it was the other way around. I had a 3D printer at work and I wanted to be able to watch it from home to know if it was failing. I could like drive back to the office and stop it.
Got it.
But yeah, I never really got into the idea of live streaming until I started watching other people live streaming on Twitch,
Right.
and got the idea of like, you know what, I've been doing interview preparation one-on-one, or doing groups with working with boot camps, and working, you know, as a software teacher myself, and teaching groups of, you know, 10 to 200 students at a time. It's like, well, if I do this in a live stream, then I have a whole bunch of people dropping by. Like right now we've got like less than 10 viewers, but sometimes we'll get like 50, you know, depending on the day of the week and what's going on and how busy people are. But we'll have like a whole bunch of people kind of cycle through, and it's like, you know what, there's definitely a market for this. So I started live streaming last July, and you know, quickly kind of grew over 1,000 followers. We had a big celebration for that recently. We've been doing lots of giveaways and stuff like that, so it's been a lot of fun. Hey Carmen, good to see you in chat as well. Carmen's an old friend, and one of the folks that actually got me into live streaming. So Carmen was part of a live stream run by a friend of mine named Jonan, and haven't seen Jonan stream in a long time, but Carmen and Jonan and a couple of other friends would get together on a weekly basis and just talk about any sort of technology thing from a beginner's point of view. And I'm like, that's amazing that they can sit down and just take Q&A from chat. And I'm like, I think I'm going to do that, but just focus on interview preparation and career advancement and those kinds of topics. And it really blew up from there, and really started to grow. And I know it's not the most exciting content. It's not as engaging as like watching somebody play League of Legends or something like that. But there's definitely a market for it, and there's a need to really understand like what goes on from our perspective as hiring managers, as directors. Like, how do we think about hiring? Like, how do we screen people? Like, what do you look for in a resume? All that kind of stuff. And so I like having people on the stream just to offer their perspective on what it's like to do hiring, and you know, what kind of folks you look for on your team, how you sort of screen people out, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's really what got me into the live streaming. So notice that Me Too asked a
I
question,
would
so
say
if you want to
almost,
jump in on that.
yeah, I would say almost the same thing. That's exactly what made me pull me into live streams and other things. By the way, there's a great question from Me Too,
Yeah.
and so Me Too, yes, what you said is right. But if you have seen my website, I guess I haven't updated it for about like 3 years or 4 years now. Sorry about that. So yes, never ever still freight yourself by putting that. If you know something, just put it. Generally, it is also a good idea to put it whether you are an intermediate or beginner or expert. Again, try to avoid those things. Just make sure that give a impression to the recruiter or interviewer saying, right, I know these things. That's it. Don't expose this is the
Let them
level
level
that
you. Let them figure out how much you know something, because
exactly.
their take on it is going to be subjective too. They might have like a very niche sort of like, how much do you know about this area of the language? So if you say I'm an 8 out of 10 in JavaScript, it's like, well, we want to focus on this, you know, certain sort of use of
In
JavaScript.
simple terms,
And
see, as a developer, we are always not satisfied with how much we know. So
yeah,
even
of
now, I
course.
would say I would say I will be an 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 of a JavaScript person. And if there is this particular person who is a recruiter or a interviewer who wants a 10 out of 10 JavaScript person, so
Right.
he comes and meets me,
They're
and then
looking for
he
the
tries
inventor,
to
basically.
exactly. So he asks me crazy questions, and these are easy for me, and I shot out every single question in the right way possible, or maybe exceeding his expectations. He would consider me as a 10 out of 10 developer, and I would say I'm just 7 out of 10. So it depends, it's totally subjective.
Right.
And yes, do not use it.
Yeah. So the question for those that were wondering is Mitu is saying like, hey, you know, we tell people not to use like sliders or indicators of like I'm an 8 out of 10 on JavaScript, but Praveen actually has that on the website. So they were asking like, why do you have that on the website? Carmen says, oh, you're back getting the Jonan show back up and running. That'd be great. Fool says, I want a 10x JavaScript dev that works for the salary of an intern. Yeah, we all do as managers. And that was something that Praveen and I actually talked about before we went live, is like, as a manager, I have a responsibility to the business to pay you as little as possible, because we've got bottom lines and budgets and things like that. And so that's sometimes why when we make a job offer, that job offer sounds low. It's because we're trying to hire you for as little as possible, because I've got a limited amount of budgets. Like, I can probably pay you more than that, but I'm hoping that you'll just say yes. But that's why you always should negotiate. You should always negotiate when you get an offer.
The negotiations comes. Yeah.
Cool deal. Well, let's chat a little bit more. So I know you've got some pretty strong feelings about people that want FAANG jobs. Like, they think like, oh, I have to go work at a FAANG company to be successful. I've made it 26 years in this career and I've never worked at a FAANG company. What's your take on working at a FAANG company, and you know, the idea that you have to go work at a FAANG company to be successful in tech?
I could see it in two ways. So if let's take my own country, India. India has got like a population like 1 divided by 0, an infinite number of people. And if everyone is going for a FAANG company, just think about a person like me. I am a backbencher, and I feel like I am a nobody in the school. And when these kids are always into like, okay, this is the tech that we want to do, and etc. etc. Even though I try to admire all those things, when it comes to competition, it is going to go bad for me. So at that point of time, I decided, okay, even if I get into FAANG company, I don't think I could get into FAANG company. But in spite of it, I got interviews from people from FAANG companies. Around 3 companies, they reached out to me, and then I went till the last round of interview, and one of the FAANG companies said that I'm not good with HTML. Yeah, that was the day I decided, okay, I'm not getting into FAANG companies. Their view of looking into people or something is like totally different from my view. So all I want is, number one, I want to have a workplace where it is like where I'm feeling comfortable. Some people used to say you have to work out of your comfort zone to become successful. Actually, no, there is no written reason like that, because when you start working inside your comfort zone, you will be more successful, because you are doing what you know to do in by heart or something like that. And second thing, yeah, so that's the first thing. I want to work in a place where I'm comfortable in the technical skills or uh, tech stack that they are using. And second thing, obviously, the respect that and second we thing usually need to receive. Like, for example, in simple terms, I have a lot of ideas coming into my mind, and if I go and tell the manager or the CEO, so first thing is I need to meet the CEO. That hasn't happened in India. Whereas in the UK, I could meet literally every single CEOs I worked for. And when I kind of like give a idea which is really good, it gets appreciated. So they value my thoughts, they value my ideas. That is one main thing which I'm looking for. Now the new thing comes is like the flexibility. Sorry, not the new thing. So the third thing is the flexibility to do what we want to do. So basically, if in India, when I was working, I was literally having no flexibility in terms of, like, let's say if I wanted to open Gmail or Twitter or any kind of social network or personal email site, even though it is not a bank company I worked for, there is like almost all the companies are blocking there. So this, I feel like, like the freedom is being gone, like something like that. But in the UK, I don't see that as a issue here. So there is nothing as such. Even if there are a couple of companies that are blocking, you can request them to unblock. Or if that is actually a fintech company, obviously you cannot say anything. So we have to accept the fact, because it's obviously a fintech company. And coming to the new thing, it's like the work from home and work from office split. So right now during the pandemic, we have invested a lot in our work from home offices. Like for example, I have got this awesome mic. By the way, this is also courtesy Eddie Jody. Eddie actually presented this to me for my birthday.
Nice.
And yeah, so considering all these things, we have invested a lot now on our work from home equipments. And immediately if they say like work from office the whole time, then there is literally no use for us. So these
Right.
are the couple of things that and obviously the final thing is salary. So these are the 5 things that I look at going for a job. Whereas I don't care if it is a fan company or if it is a startup that was just opened in the garage. As long as these 5 factors are satisfied, I'm always happy.
Yeah. RC Maniac made a good point just now in chat too. Says, I'm not against interviewing with Fang, but I decided I didn't want to work for Fang while I was graduating. I want to see what I worked on, not just, yeah, I did some optimization somewhere. Yeah, I agree. When you're part of a team of like 50,000 engineers, you never are really sure like what kind of impact that you have on things. It's like, well, yeah, if you open Google Docs and, you go into the file menu and, you say, I want to import like a graphic and I can import that graphic from, Jiffy.com or something like that. Like, I built that. It's like, okay, well, me working over that startup, you see that whole website, I built that entire thing. Like, you have a much bigger impact at smaller companies for sure. And smaller companies need that talent every bit as much as bigger companies. But yeah, I mean, the salary is not going to be there. And I think a lot of people feel that the success comes from the big salary. But then I think there's kind of a letdown too, that if your first couple of jobs are in a big FANG company and you start making that FANG salary, that when you leave to go to literally any other company, they can't pay you that much money. And you're like, well, do you feel trapped then in that FANG ecosystem because you want to keep making that same amount of money? Most people don't want to take a pay cut, even if they're going to be happier and whatever. Like they end up having like a standard of living or whatever that they feel that they want to maintain. So it becomes much harder then to deal with that kind of stuff.
So one problem with migrating from fan company to a non-fan company is, I have seen personally, it's not about the pay cut as well. So let's take one of the fan companies. They are into a lot of products, and they have so much crazy ecosystem inside them. Whatever you learn for, like, let's say you are working in this one of the fan companies for like around 2-3 years, and then when you come out and to start working in another startup or even a big company or maybe another fan company, you have to start from the ground zero. The
Right.
reason being, whatever you used in that fan company, that stays in the fan company, the same company.
Yeah.
Even between the fan companies, it is not the same. So fan companies have got their own ecosystem, which I personally know, I have personally worked on, and a lot of things that you learn during those things will not help you. Whereas for my 8 years of my UK work experience, whatever I have learned, whatever I have implemented in my previous company, it is actually making my foundation very strong. And whenever I try to implement something new, it is giving me a backup for it. So yeah, that is not possible in fan companies, is my personal opinion, and that's one of the main concerns, not the pay, but this one. So you literally it's similar to, if you are renting a house, you're paying for all these rent, and when you are out of the house, even though you have paid 20,000 or 50,000, it's gone to the toilet. Simple.
Yeah. At the same time, though, like having made that change and now I'm a homeowner, I'm like, oh, I wish I had somebody to call and fix that toilet. Now I got to do it. So, or like,
That's a problem with the homeowner thing.
Yeah, or I have to hire the plumber and I've got to pay the plumber. Like, or at least when you're renting, like they're, the landlord hopefully is covering all that for you. But yeah, there's definitely there are pros and cons to working at really big companies. Yes, the salary's there, and yes, you're going to be viewed as like, oh, you must be really smart because you worked at Google. But I've also been on interview teams where, it's like, oh, you worked at, a FANG company. It's like, if we hire you, you're going to come solve all of our problems. And we actually hired somebody from, they were like a pretty senior level dev. I think they were like a staff level engineer from one of the FANG companies. We hired them at the company thinking like this person's going to come save the day. And they got in there and they're like, I don't know what to do. And we're like, what do you mean? And they're like, I'm used to just people coming to my desk and giving me the work and say, go build this thing. And I would just go build the thing. And we were relying on them to come up with the ideas about how do we architect things? How do we scale things? How do we do this stuff? And they're like, I don't know either. It's like, why did we hire you? You know, like we hired you and we brought you in at this, you know, elevated salary because you came over from a FANG company. And it's like, you don't even know what to do. And they're like, yeah, I'm just used to opening Jira and look at the next work ticket and go figure out what I need to do to go satisfy that ticket. And they had no idea how to like actually go architect something from scratch or how to look at an existing architecture and start to scale it out, because that wasn't part of what they had to do at Facebook. Because again, they're a little cog on a great big giant wheel. They hadn't been involved in that. And so we had to start refining our interview process a little bit more to screen, okay, well, if they're coming from a FANG company, like, do they really know what we expect that they're going to know if we actually like hire them and bring them on the team? And that person ended up leaving the company on their own. They're like, you know, I'm not going to succeed here. And so they actually left, like, I want to say within a couple of months, which is disappointing, you know, because we paid them a pretty elevated salary for that couple of months and we didn't get very much work out of them in the end.
Yeah, that always happens. Like the total work cultures, everything is totally different when it is compared with FANG companies.
Yeah.
Oh, there is another question from me too. I'm curious to know why they said you didn't know HTML. What were they expecting you to do an entire modern design with nested tables like it's 2001 using IE6? Hey, not exactly. You are for a mistake. It's not IE6. It's IE3. Could be IE3, seriously.
Yeah, for sure. RC Maniac
So,
says oh, sorry, go ahead.
and yes, most of the times this is true. So, oops, I was about to say something, I totally forgot. Yeah, go on.
Oh, no worries. So RC Maniac said, my last job at a mid-sized company, we had teams that did infrastructure and productivity and tooling. And I moved to a startup and I'm like, oh, we should automate this. And they said, well, who's going to do the automation? And you start to realize how much you take for granted. Yeah, for sure.
So what's that stop breaking the toilet thing?
Oh, well, because I was saying, like, if I break the toilet, I got to go fix that toilet, right? Or I have to, like, go hire my own plumber to go fix that toilet.
Yeah.
So
that's
Me
true.
Too's like, just stop breaking the toilet. Yeah.
But it is not possible, right? Like this is my phone which I'm carrying for it like my baby. But unfortunately, it has got so many blows now, and accidents are inevitable.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't help.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So at your current company, so you mentioned that you're involved in hiring. How do you train your engineers to help you with interviewing? Let me put you on the spot a little bit. I know this wasn't part of our question list, but like
No. I mean, like
being
this
involved
this
as a
company I
director.
haven't.
Go ahead.
This company I haven't started hiring because even now I haven't completed my probation yet. It's just been
Okay.
2.5 months, or like there is like another 2 days, but I have already come across 3 months, but these 3 days are like literally hell for me. When am I going to get the letter? What is gonna contain? Yes or no? Or
Yeah.
I'm like literally waiting to know the secret.
The outcome. Yeah.
So in my previous company, I used to hire a lot of people. Like in my previous company, previous to previous company, possibly I'll be doing that in this company as well. So I did not quite understand your question. Can you repeat it in a simple
Yeah.
way?
So when you're involved in hiring, what level of training do you give other engineers that are also helping interview people? Like, you know, you might do the initial phone screen and say, okay, well, I'm going to get Ian on the phone, find out whether I think Ian's going to be a fit. But now I'm going to call RC Maniac in and say, hey, RC, go interview Ian and give me your thoughts on whether they're going to fit in on the team, if they're going to be a good engineer on the team. Like, how much training do you give your other people on the team to actually go conduct interviews?
Literally in my last two employers, I have been the last point of decision making. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you because I'm not involved. So it's going to be coming to me, and there will be only one question from my side, and I'm just going to look at their practical problem solving approach. If I say yes, they are hired. If I say no, they are not hired. That's it.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that was the current. And for those people, okay, anyway, if I'm not with those companies now, so
Sure.
90% of them, if they are good enough, I mean, they have come to this level, uh, like fighting all the hurdles. Now there is no point in rejecting them unless and until they are like completely like useless.
Gotcha.
So to be honest, if I could get the correct stats, out of 70 people I interviewed, there were only 2 people I rejected.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, as a hiring manager myself, when I was a director of engineering and I had people on my team help with interviews and so on, but I would do most of the screening myself. And I was able to kind of make a pretty quick, assessment of, yeah, I think that they could do the job. So I'm going to have them meet with like one engineer and just have them, talk about what we do on a daily basis and so on. And so it wasn't so much hey, make sure that if you ask this kind of question, you get this kind of answer. Like it wasn't like really formal interview training, but it was a lot of, your job as the engineer on the team, as an interviewer, is just to figure out, like, do you want to work with that person on a regular basis? Do they communicate well? Do you get along well? Do they raise any flags? Anything like that. Where I would do more of the technical assessment and technical screening. But in most companies, they don't do a lot of interview training for the actual people running the interviews. And so, yeah, you were kind of like the last hurdle that they had to get over. But like all of the people that they had to get through in order to get to you, like how much training did they get? Or were they just like, I don't know how to interview somebody. I guess I'll go take a question off a leak code and like, hope that they can answer it, kind of thing. Like it's so subjective. Like when I worked at SendGrid, we actually sat down and we actually worked out a rubric of like, we're going to ask these kinds of questions. These are the kinds of answers that we're going to listen for. And we scored everybody on a 4-point scale of strong no, weak yes, strong yes. There's no middle ground, so it was either a yes or a no. But then a question of, was it a strong yes or a weak yes? Like, are they like, yeah, I guess they can kind of do it, or like, yeah, they can absolutely do, they absolutely answered that question, or they were able to absolutely like, get that algorithm or work in that code or whatever. But it's amazing how many companies don't even do that.
I guess I kind of go with you because the companies where I interviewed was where I was the interviewer, the last final interviewer. Mm-hmm. Almost all the companies were service-based companies. So service-based companies, I guess there is this thing that, okay, they are looking at the profile, they are doing all the background check. Maybe there are a lot of initial phone calls, and they are trying to get more details about the candidate, and they are already saying yes there.
Yeah.
And then there is this eye wash kind of interview. It's just my hunch, because I actually got selected with 6 companies, and I had to reject 5 of them for being in this company. And out of those 6 companies, almost 4 companies were service-based companies. And in those service-based companies, the questions were not even like, hey, what is your name? Do you know to speak English well? What's your father's name? What's your date of birth? Oh yeah, all the answers are correct. You are selected. That was the
Wow.
level of interview. So this is so true. In one of the interviews where I was about to be paid like 90 grand, which is like huge, super huge. The interview lasted only for half an hour. And in that half an hour, they were just asking like I just told about myself. That was a 3-minute thing, which I always practice. So like I mentioned in the first few minutes, I'm originally from India, Chennai, and this one did my masters, this. These are the things that I have been doing. That's it. After that, there were only 2 questions. Do you know this? Do you know this? Okay, we'll get back to you. 2 days, they said, here's the offer. Would you like to go for it? Do you need a visa? Do you need any immigration things? That's it. And they were also ready to spend the super speed visa, which is like the super priority visa, which is like 1-day visa. And think about how much they are investing with just in a half an hour phone call.
Wow, they put a lot of trust that you can actually do the job or figure out how to do the job. Yeah. And maybe the person who interviewed me should be either extremely talented to read the minds and get the clear picture of who I am, or maybe they have already made a lot of background checks about me
and they said like, yeah, whatever it is, let's get him or something like that, because
Yeah.
of my social profile. Obviously, I'm like
Right.
extremely active on LinkedIn and other places, and yeah, that's actually a threat as well.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, it brings up a good point. Like, if we can screen those employees really well before we even get them on the phone, then we've already got a pretty good idea. Like, we think you could do the job. Like, I say on the stream all the time, when I'm looking at resumes or CVs, I'm looking for a reason to say no. Like, I've got hundreds of these to get through, and so I need a short list of like, who do I think can do the job. Now when I'm actually interviewing people, I'm looking for a reason to say yes. And one of the things I would do as a director is something kind of that you said like early in the conversation around like, if they're good enough, that's okay. Like, and for me, sometimes good enough is good enough. Like, I don't maybe need like the top talent, because top talent's also going to be top dollar. Maybe I just need somebody that I'm like, yeah, I think you can do the job, and I would just extend the offer, and I would just, if they took it, I would just stop all the interviews and I would just hire that person. It's like, you know, there is some benefit of like, go interview a whole bunch of people and find the best of the best and whatever, and that's okay. But sometimes good enough is good enough, and just hire like as soon as you find who you think is the right person, and then just stop the interviewing. Interviewing is expensive. I just want to get somebody on my team, but you know, you still have to get through some amount of scrutiny and background and so on. Yeah.
The main thing that I do check in the interviews is two things. Number one, confidence. Number two, the problem solving approach. I don't need the solution. All I need is how this person can solve the problem, like from the start to end, how much speed the person is able to go to the end. I don't care what is the route you are taking, but all I need to see is what is the percentage of the solution, and how quick you are coming up with a solution. How are you able to analyze the problem and get the right solution? What is the approach you are taking? So if your approach is right, you are in my team. That's it.
Yep. Fool's got some great wisdom dropped in chat too. Don't let good be the enemy of great, and a good coworker tomorrow can be better than a great one never. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I could spend a lot of time just screening applicant after applicant after applicant and trying to find the top talent. And I think that's why a lot of FANG companies have such a hard interview process, because they're trying to find the best of the best of the best. But unfortunately, their interviews commonly favor people that have the time to do nothing but grind on LeetCode. And a lot of times what they actually do on the job is not related to what they're, you know, practicing in LeetCode, but you know, that's how they interviewed. And so when they turn around and interview people, they give the same kinds of interviews. And when they leave that company, they also do those kinds of interviews. That they never really get out of that mindset of like, you've got to be amazing at algorithmic thinking. It's like, well, it's more the problem solving than, you know, have you memorized how to do a depth first search? It's more like, why do you want to use a depth first search in this scenario? Like, understanding how and why you want to build a solution is more important than just having a memorization of why you use a min heap over a max heap and what the big O notation is of blah blah blah. It's like in my career, we've never sat down as a team and said, hey, let's talk about the big O notation of this whole algorithm. Like, yeah, you want to go in and you want to find bottlenecks, but there's observability and monitoring and things that you can add to your code to find out where your bottlenecks are and go, all right, of this whole like 3-second journey, this chunk of code is taking, you know, a large percentage of that. Let's just go analyze that, see if there's a way to make it more efficient. But we wouldn't sit down and like figure out big O notation about it. We just look at it and go, oh yeah, let's do this in a more asynchronous way, or let's throw a webhook in here to do more event driven. And hey, look at that, we just sped it up, you know, 5x. You know, that's really all we need to do as a team. But our interviews are so focused on these computer science fundamentals that honestly, like, I don't even remember. I graduated in 96, so it's been 26 years since I graduated. I don't remember half of that stuff. You know, like, yeah, I could go study it and I could do all that again, but if someone were to like really sit me down and be like, all right, here's a really complex piece of code, give me the big O notation, I'd be like, nah. Like, yeah,
that's true. So many comments. Let's have a quick look at the comments.
Yeah, for sure. I've been working at a place considered top employer, but the problem is when they manage to hit real talent, then they put those people on infrastructure provisioning, those people are going to quit. Yeah. I mean, they like, as a manager, I have to find a balance between what you're good at, but also what you're interested in doing. Because just because you're really good at something doesn't mean you want to do that forever. Like
And
maybe
what the
you've got
company
an interest in
needs.
something and what the company needs. Yeah. Um, and so I mean that's kind of playing to the strength. Like if I need someone that's really good at automation, you happen to be really good at automation, I'm going to pull you in on that project. But if that's not what you want to be doing, we should also be having that conversation on a regular basis of like, what do you want to be doing so that I can find those opportunities for you. That's how you can identify a good manager, is when they're really invested in what you want to be doing, not just what you're really good at and that I want you to be doing. Like, what do you want to be doing? That's a sign of a good manager. Most managers, though, hold so tightly to what the business needs and what the business wants that they don't spend enough time thinking about the people, and that's where you get people leaving, and they think, oh, my manager doesn't listen to me, so I'm going to quit. And it's because you didn't have that conversation. And I think sometimes as engineers, we can sort of start that conversation with our manager, but ultimately it's up to the manager to make those opportunities happen. And if they can't, then yes, sometimes you do need to leave the job. But you know, it's a little bit different for everybody, and not everybody feels empowered to make a job change. Not everybody has that sense of you know, privilege or position in life where there's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go quit my job and go find a new job. Especially if you're tied to like a work visa, you may not have that flexibility, and you just have to tough it out. But there is a balance to be made for sure around like, what are you good at? There was something I heard recently. There's like a Japanese term of like what you're good at, what you want to be doing, yeah, and what you can be paid to do or something. There's like a balance in that. And I think it's really interesting to think about how all those things kind of intersect, to go find a job that you're really, really passionate about.
So it's like what you love and what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and
Yeah.
what you are good at. So
Yeah.
one is passion, one is mission, one is vocation, one is profession. And if all these things are the same, it's Ikigai.
Yeah. Yeah. RC Maniac's talking about interview experience at Google. They got asked, or they got rejected because of their big O, and then they were told later that wasn't an appropriate question. Yeah. Knowing how to use Google versus knowing how to be efficient with Google. Yeah, I mean, just searching on Google, but also knowing how to identify like what's a good search result from Google is also really important.
That's
too.
True.
I mean, when I was a teacher, I would ask students to go figure something out, and I see them like Google it, and they just click on the first answer, you know, on Stack Overflow, and then they're like copying and pasting
also,
code
like,
and wondering why it doesn't work.
Nowadays, most of the times they used to click on the ads which are exactly opposite to what you search.
Right.
So if people are searching about Facebook, try to show the Instagram thing, or like if people are searching about Pepsi, show them Coca-Cola ads,
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
So that's exactly where a lot of people start complaining. Dude, first understand this is how marketing works. This is how advertising works. Advertising and marketing are totally evil, like the opposite things.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say probably what would be better, instead of searching Google for those answers, just go to stackoverflow.com and use their search tool for what it is you're trying to find. You'll probably get better answers than Google.
So there is also this one fun thing that I used to do back in those days. So I used to work a lot in JavaScript, right? So there is this try catch, and while the inside the catch, what I do is in the console.log, I used to put console.error and then put exception. This exception need more help. StackOverflow.com / question mark question q equal to e.message. That's it.
Yeah. That's
inside
funny.
the double quote. So that way it is going to directly go to Stack Overflow answers, and just go figure out what it is and try to fix it. It's you, not me.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea for sure. Yeah, good times.
And thanks to Stack Overflow, because of that, I have learned a lot. And this is one of the positions I would devote to Stack Overflow. Because of being in Stack Overflow, I learned a lot. So generally, I love to teach people a lot, and when that happens, I get taught. Actually, a lot of people try to ask questions, and I try to answer them. And in that answers, I have my view of answering it. This is what I know, so I'm just answering this way. There are other people who are competing in that small window, the fastest gun on the west. So that other answers, if I have a look at it, oh my god, why didn't I think of this one? Then came the code wars. So
Right.
code wars is giving you something like lead code questions,
Hmm.
and then when I try to answer in one way, it is going to assess your answer based on your creativity, cleverness, and the speed. What do you call this? Performance basis.
Right.
And the cleverness thing, when you have a look at other answers, you would be absolutely amazed to see how many people think just like you, how many people think so crazy ways of achieving some problem. Well, that is what you need, not lead code or like DSA, CP.
Yeah.
Maybe they might help, or maybe whatever I do comes under these things, which I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Full Snable actually asks a really good question. I wonder if GitHub Copilot is going to reduce the traffic on Stack Overflow. My question is, what if Google Copilot is going and scraping things from Stack Overflow?
It is already doing it.
Yeah, I
And
imagine
one more
it is.
problem is,
yeah, go ahead.
it is actually making people who more dumber. It's good that I couldn't afford to get GitHub Copilot, which is actually good. I'm not lazy enough. I'm already lazy enough by using all these tools like Emmet and things, but I do have a reason for using them, because I don't want to do these mundane tasks like, at aligning things and making sure all these tags are perfectly closed, etc. Let it be, let it take care, like let the machine take care. But thinking of a solution and answering it, I want to do it, or else I will die. So that's as simple as that. The moment I stop learning, that is the death of me.
Yeah. Me Too says I'm not going to pay for an AI code assistant that I don't even want to use during the free beta. Yeah, it's interesting.
I was actually thinking about something. So what happens if so I'm completely into HTML and CSS, and people, if they are coming to me for if they are interviewing me, and if they are including DSA and algos in it, I'm gonna outright reject them. Why a CSS developer need to have programming knowledge? That's the first thing. People who are designers, they are even charged with like DSA and algos. Anyway,
funny story there. I actually had a VP of engineering that said everybody we hire in engineering has to have a bachelor's degree in computer science. We're hiring front-end developers to do HTML and CSS. Why did they need a bachelor's degree? And he's like, nope, everybody must have a bachelor's degree in computer science. We're like, all right, we're gonna hire absolutely the wrong people for this job.
I mean, in India, it's like that. So literally having a bachelor's degree in computer science or bachelor's of engineering degree is a must for any jobs, like literally any jobs. Even if you want to go as a peon, you need a bachelor of engineering degree.
Yeah.
I even saw a funny ad which was saying, I'm not sure if you have heard of the paratha. Have you heard of paratha, the Indian bread, naan bread?
I don't know if I've heard of it by that name. I love naan, but I don't know if I've...
naan, right? So
I might have. I don't recall the name.
Okay, roti, chapati, paratha, naan.
Oh yeah,
anything.
Yeah.
So to make that, you need to like roll the dough and then beat it a couple of times.
Sure.
Like how generally the Indian kids' parent beat them, and you need to like stretch it, roll it, stretch it, roll it, and make it into a dough, and you need to put it in the frying pan. Okay, so this is the process. So there was this particular fun part. We are hiring BE Tech freshers, 20,000 something, just 20,000 rupees as salary, and next to it there is this hotel's ad that says we are hiring freshers. BE Tech is preferred, even M Tech is preferred. We are giving 50,000 for freshers.
Wow, too funny to work at a restaurant.
And that's true. That's true. It is true. Even now it is true. Working in a restaurant gives you a lot much salary, like at least double the salary than if you work in a IT fresher.
Wow, that's interesting. So one of my favorite puns ever is related to this conversation. It's the Indian restaurant that I love to eat at ran out of flatbread, but they didn't want me posting on social media, so they made me sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Non-disclosure. Excellent. That's a good one. We need to catch up with the chat.
They're just going on and on about Copilot and Stack Overflow and stuff like that. Not sure you need any degree.
I need to know why. I need to know
Yeah.
why Fuel Snabble says that I don't trust Stack Overflow for either. Why?
Yeah, that'd be an
Yeah,
interesting
that's
one
true.
too. Yeah.
Front end is very hard nowadays.
Front end is hard enough that you almost need an engineering degree just for front end. I mean, like nowadays, it seems to be a lot more complex. Like you can get into like so much cool stuff now in just CSS. Like I love when people post like, hey, here's this thing that I built, this whole animation, this whole thing, just in CSS, like no JavaScript or whatever. It's just the CSS.
Exactly.
Doing animation is like, wow, like I built this thing in
That
CSS.
needs that actually needs out of box thinking and problem solving abilities,
For sure.
not DSA.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah, there's no data structure in CSS. There's very little algorithmic thinking in CSS for sure. So you work a lot in front end. Do you work in JavaScript or TypeScript or CoffeeScript? Like, what do you work in on the front end?
I hate TypeScript because
Really?
I hate Java from my birth.
Okay.
I want to be the Java killer, but unfortunately, even in my current position, I need to learn TypeScript. So I said like, okay, because the boss, my both the bosses are really super cool. I wish to stay with them forever, and because of them, I'm starting to learn TypeScript. So look at this person who hates TypeScript and Java for the entirety of his life. Now, because of their words, I'm learning TypeScript. So that's the boss I would like to have. By the way, TypeScript. It seems like a useless overload to me. Anyone who is ready to like brainwash me to learn TypeScript, it is going to be helpful for me. Please do that. And I have the huge retaliation for TypeScript. So go ahead, convince me that TypeScript is good, please. It's going to save my job.
Well, I mean, it does raise an interesting question though around like strongly typed languages and loosely typed languages.
Why?
Like JavaScript has its own like really interesting sort of
it's a loosely coupled working language. What else do you need? And basically, TypeScript is going to convert into JavaScript at the end. So there is a useless overload in between, and the payload is also heavy. Like you need to keep on putting int, string, the object type itself. That's an object. Dude, seriously, leave it, ignore it. It's easy.
Yeah, I was watching this video last night. I'm gonna drop the link in chat. It was really interesting. It was this whole idea of like what, and they talk about like, let's talk about Ruby and like some of the weird esoteric things that Ruby can do, and then it gets into JavaScript where you're just like, wait, what? Like, if you add an array to an object, you get an object inside the array, but if you do it the other way around, you get all these, like, you get a 0 or something. It's like, basically how it's doing all of the coercion and stuff like that in JavaScript is like very unintuitive and so on. So it like raises a lot of questions around like what. But yeah, like I find it really interesting too to think about like, when they come up with things like TypeScript, where they're trying to sort of shoehorn the idea of strongly typed language into where it basically has to transpile into a language that is not type specific. Like you typically see this thing happen the other way around. Like, when Python was first made, it was written in C, C++, which are strongly typed in order to give us a language which was not strongly typed. And now they're starting to kind of like, work typing into Python as well. But like to take something like TypeScript and turn it into something that is not strongly typed and still expect it to operate is kind of an interesting way to think about things.
So recently I was looking to purchase houses. At that point of time, I saw the houses are purpose built. Okay, so what does this mean? And when I asked that, there are a lot of houses that has been converted from office space to houses. So this is not like that. This is houses built for houses. So something like that. And JavaScript is built for one reason, to make people happy. TypeScript is also built for one reason.
JavaScript was made to make people happy? How's that been going for everybody?
For me, it's going into a depression
if you're
mode,
happy writing JavaScript.
Sorry?
I said, raise your hand in chat if you're happy writing JavaScript.
Okay, I'll be the first person then.
Yeah, JavaScript is a really popular language for sure. I'm interested to see where the PyScript is going to go. Like writing Python in the browser, I think is going to be interesting for guys like me that love the idea of writing Python, but like it's still got to transpile back down into JavaScript to actually execute in the browser. Like the browser is only supporting JavaScript at the end of the day, and so CoffeeScript and TypeScript and all these, like even Dart and things like that. Like they're all converting back to JavaScript at the end of the day.
Similarly, I'm using PHP and MySQL for my hobby projects.
Yeah.
Because no one is like, if I say that I love PHP, people will throw stones at me.
Well, so I mean, to be clear, PHP 7 and 8 are way better than what we used in PHP back in the day with like PHP 3,
PHP
4,
5.
and 5. Like those were garbage. Like
So when I was born, it's PHP 5.
When you were born, oh thanks. I used 3 when it was in beta back in 1998, and honestly, I spent a decade writing PHP and Perl, and kind of going back and forth between the two as part of the LAMP stack development back then. And then I got to a point at SendGrid where we stopped using PHP. We were using Symfony as well, and I stopped doing PHP and I went all in on Python. And I'm like, Python it made more sense. It was designed better, like from the beginning, to be an object-oriented language and so on. And it didn't feel like, well, we started as a scripting kind of thing where you could combine HTML and the coding, and now people want it to be object-oriented and they want it to have all this stuff, and so they were kind of like gradually changing it, but there wasn't a sense of consistency in there, and so it made it really, really awful. And what's interesting now is we've kind of come back around full circle with React and things like JSX, where it's like, let's write some code and HTML together in those JSX templates. It's like, oh, we're back to PHP. It's just we're calling it something else now.
That's exactly why I love React, because it is totally like PHP, and for people like who is migrating from PHP to React, they will find it, okay, we are not doing something new, so this is very comfortable.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I think a lot of folks that wrote PHP that liked that aspect of PHP of like, we can combine all these things just in a single file, are going to be drawn back to things like JSX. But me personally, like I like now that I've worked on a lot of MVC frameworks and things like that, and you see that separation of responsibility where I can say, you know what, I don't have to deal with the front end. I can go hire a front end developer just to take care of that, because I'll make it work, you make it pretty. Like that's not my strength. I don't have as much interest in like trying to come up with like a really nice, clever looking design. That's why the whole tech interview guide website looks very plain. I borrowed somebody else's template to kind of build the look and feel, and I can go in and I can modify it, but like to come up with that from scratch, I would really struggle. But yeah, I like the separation now, and I think that like when I was learning React about a year ago, I was getting into like understanding the difference, like where you're still building that component that has HTML and it has JavaScript and it has CSS, but they're all still kind of separate within that component, and then you're just reusing that component everywhere. And so you still have this modular idea. It wasn't exactly MVC, but it was it was like the kind of the model and the view, and less controller, because that's more like the outer part of React. But to see this JSX now where you're just mashing everything together, to me it feels weird to like put all that stuff back together. I like that separation myself.
So one thing which I wanted to say is like people talking about Python being easier than JavaScript. I was like, what? I tried to learn Python a lot, but I couldn't get it. So that's one thing which I wanted to ask. What is your view on that?
So when Guido made Python, he modeled it after a language called ABC, which was meant to teach kids how to code. And so his whole thing is like, you shouldn't need more than like a 5th grade education to really get into Python and learn the basic syntax. Now, obviously, you can get into very complex syntax with Python, but like to come up with the idea of a class and a function and parameters and return statements and things like that, that it was meant to be really easy to kind of read and sort of understand. That he wanted the language to be not exactly, English, but really close to everyday language, to where it was a high-level language that was going to be easy to sort of understand as you kind of skim through the code. Now, obviously, you can take any language and make it super, super complex. You can also take any language and abstract things enough to make it much easier to use as well. It depends how much sort of effort you want to put into that. Me personally, like once I started getting into Python, I'm like, this makes sense. This feels to me like it makes sense. And this is coming from, I started in C and assembly, and then got into like Perl and PHP, which were, slightly higher level than both of those. And then getting into Python, which feels higher level than that. Understanding what's actually going on under the hood, and understanding like, oh, okay, when I do a list comprehension, I'm just iterating over an array. So I could write it out as a for loop and do this thing, but you sprinkle the syntactic sugar on it and do it in the Python way, and there's something under the hood that's optimizing that and turning it back into that for loop anyway. So do I write it as the for loop? Do I write it as a list comprehension? I look at it like, well, who's going to go read the code later? If I'm going to go read the code later, I know what a list comprehension does, and so my own scripting and so on, I'm going to use a list comprehension. But if it's code that I'm going to share with somebody else, I'm probably going to take it out of that comprehension and write it more as the for loop that they might be more familiar with reading, because I want to make sure that whoever's reading my code can maintain it. But I've seen that backfire at a company where we wrote really highly optimized code and someone couldn't read it, so they went in and they made it readable, but by making it readable, undid all of the optimization. And when they deployed it, things were literally like 15 times slower. And we're like, why is this suddenly so slow? Like, we end up with this big giant backlog of data that we couldn't process. We're like, what happened? This used to be really fast. And we dug into it and realized that they had gone in and they had unoptimized this code in order to make it readable. So there is some balance in there of readability versus optimization. I haven't yet found a really good language. I'm sure that they're out there that balances those in a really good way, where you can read it and understand it, but also gives you like highly optimized sort of efficiencies. I imagine maybe Rust and so on are probably examples of where that could happen, but I haven't played with Rust at all.
Got it. Yeah, and what these people are talking about, the same Python is true. So
yeah,
basically Python was easy, and now if they see the Python, oh, what is this Python? Okay, great. Same feed. And
for sure.
One thing, is it possible to share your screen, William?
So I don't have that set up in Zoom right now. Well, actually, let me check. Let me see if we can do this. So bear with me, folks, as
Just bring in a browser if that is possible. I wanted to show you something.
Sure.
So this is mainly for those people who are saying front end is easy, back end is tough.
Let me go.
There's an open challenge here.
Let me go find some windows here. So let me pull that up.
Great.
And
okay.
Yeah.
So search for Simon Bruno.
Simon Bruno.
Or Bruno Simon, I don't know. Just open it. First one, Bruno Simon. So if someone is able to make this using just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript,
wow,
go for it. And if you are saying that this is going to be easy, go for it. Be my guest.
I have seen this. I've seen something like this for sure. Oh, you realize you just took everything. My entire productivity just went straight down the toilet. So thank you for sharing a game like this that I can play. We have breaks. Okay. Zoom in and out. M to mute. I think we'll keep the sound on because I can't
hear anything at this point, but yeah.
Well, everybody else on the call should hear it. Oh wait,
I
don't know.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if y'all will actually know because I gotta pull the audio in. I gotta fix that anyway, so bear with me. I'll get the audio pulled in here. So
actually, I believe we are able to hear the sound. Yes, in the stream. Okay,
cool. Yep.
And folks, what do you think about this website? This website that's done using pure HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And is there anyone who is now saying that front end is easy? Please try to do this.
I think they're definitely saying Ian shouldn't be driving, but this is great though. Like to see this in kind of a see it in a very interactive way is really, really clever. As you move the mouse pointer, the clouds automatically scroll based on where the mouse pointer is. Like, I love that panoramic sort of view on here. It's pretty great.
Oh wow. Okay, I did not see this. Okay, this is Madbox.io. Okay, I'll have a quick look at what this one is.
Automation Island.
I'm gonna play around with your Twitch screen with the goodies that I have got. I'm gonna use a highlight message. Ooh.
Move chat around here a little bit.
This is nice. Madbox.io is nice. And one more thing I wanted to show you as well. Is it possible for you to like open my twitter.com/Praveen Science? And it might be a long time before you could find it as well in that. Oh, this is the Madbox that you are looking for. Okay. Just keep going, keep scrolling. I guess it's easier to use. Okay, just keep scrolling. And that is Python again. So let's keep scrolling. Keep scrolling.
What am I looking for here?
There is this. We are looking for some kind of a game, a portfolio on the game. So let's keep going. I'll tell you, it will not be missable. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not it. No. That's, we are almost near. It's just near.
Square boys, round boys, curly boys, pointy boys. That's great. Love it.
Yeah, just one more round. Keep going down. I guess that stop it there. Above. The person with still above. Yeah. No. Go to the top. Slightly stop. Top. Yes. This one. This is the thread which I want you to see.
Okay.
So if you go to, yeah. So see from the first. It's the last thread you are looking at. So go to the top.
The very top of that thread. Okay.
Actually, this is actually a React-based website. When it comes to React-based websites, so whenever I speak to people, yes, I am a hardcore React developer and React.js is my girlfriend. It is not that I use React for everything. Like for example, if I want to create my own personal portfolio, I will not use React because React is not meant for that. For personal portfolio, I'll be just using a simple HTML, CSS, and it should also be loadable in the basic browsers, IE3, IE2, IE1 if there is something like that. So coming to this one, so this is Marco's personal portfolio, and the way he has done is it's a React website. It's fine because it is complex. There are a lot of Easter eggs he has put in. So this is one of the best things ever I have seen in my life. Just wanted to give you a idea of like how cool this one is.
Let's go have a look.
Yes. So here, if as any web developer, what will we do? Just right click, inspect element.
This won't show up on chat, but yeah, I see the literal Easter egg in the console log.
Exactly. Oh, why doesn't it show on chat? Okay, do you want to dock it to the...
I have OBS set up to only show the browser, and I have the inspect tool broken out from that. So I
yeah. Can you dock it back? Like you can use the Docker.
Yep. Just give me a sec here. Oops.
On the right side, I believe.
Yeah, I'm getting there. There it is.
Great. Yeah. So yeah.
So there's a literal Easter egg in the chat or in the console. Yeah, this is pretty cool for sure.
So yeah, I ended up solving the whole Easter egg, like within like half an hour or 1 hour, and it was one of the best experiences ever I had. And considering that is a personal portfolio, I'm just thinking how much passionate this person is to include a complete game inside his personal portfolio.
That's cool.
And it's tough to find it out. Like not everyone would be able to find it out, and it's really, really, really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, just overall from a website experience point of view, like it's well made, it's well thought of. You know, the layout is nice, it's easy to sort of navigate around and so on. Like, you know, it's playful, it's colorful, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see like how you can scroll around the site and like what's possible.
And there is also one more thing I wanted to show you when you are ready.
It's in Wisconsin. Oh, that's kind of cool. You can see like where he's lived and when and what he did. Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, there is actually another Easter egg there, but anyway, let's go for the next thing. And yeah, so one more thing which I wanted to tell us. Just open again Google. It's Robbie Leonardi, interactive resume. Robbie Leonardi. Yeah, resume. Interactive resume.
Yes, I have seen this one.
Yeah.
This one's amazing.
You have seen this, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god. He is also having. Oh, nice. Cool.
Yep. Yeah, this one's great for sure. I remember how to jump. Like up and down felt unintuitive on this one for sure. It's like you would expect left and right to go left and right, but up and down actually change from left to right. Oh, it automatically jumps, I guess. Yeah. Very, very clever for sure. But again, like, don't level yourself. Stop making progress bars on things. But I mean, clearly this person knows about HTML and CSS, so like, you know, I'm not gonna doubt that they're an expert at this kind of stuff. But
yeah. So
because again, I mean, it really comes down to like, how do you demonstrate your skill? You know, if you want to claim proficiency on something, that's fine. If you can demonstrate that skill to be like, yes, clearly you are, you know, an expert at these things. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So folks who are watching us in the chat, is there anyone still saying front end is easier?
Yeah, for sure.
Easier than backend, to be honest. Yeah. Because backend, I see like backend is so something like cakewalk comparing to all these things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Me Too doesn't like the idea.
jQuery is awesome, man. jQuery is super awesome. Seriously, super awesome.
I remember when jQuery first came out. I was working at a startup in Santa Monica, California, and we had somebody come do like a meetup, and they're like, hey, there's this library we want to tell everybody about called jQuery, and it was only like 17 kilobytes or something at the time. It's like 17,000 bytes of code, and look at all this cool stuff you can do. And it was just doing like CSS selectors or something at the time, and like, I think some like a little bit of event handling. And they're like, it's still in beta, but it's this, you know, it's this amazing thing. And we're like, we're all in on this jQuery thing. This is fantastic. And it was. And then, of course, like many other things, it gets bigger and bloated, and, you know, it turns into all this stuff that it maybe wasn't initially intended to be. And, you know, and now jQuery isn't really used anymore because somebody else came up with something that they thought was better. And React. So now we don't use jQuery anymore. Yeah. So.
React is awesome. React and jQuery is like Coca-Cola and Mentos together. Right?
Right. But I mean, the idea now, though, is that, like, I like the way that they designed React, where it's small and it's modular and it's a plug-in kind of thing. Like, you want router, it's like, okay, well, go install React Router, but it's not in there by default. Right. And that's what I think I like about React, where it feels big because you can add all these other plugins, but you don't have to have the plugins. And I think that that's where you can gain a lot of strength on these things, as opposed to something like jQuery, where they just kept adding it to the code. And there were, you know, extensions to jQuery, but at the end of the day, like, most of the stuff ended up getting built right into jQuery, so you only had one thing to download. And that's where you run into problems of bloat, and it's like, oh, now jQuery went from 17 kilobytes to like over a megabyte of code, because they kept adding things and then somebody came up with the idea of, well, let's figure out how to do minification. Let's shrink all that back down by stripping out white space, which is actually one of the last projects I had to do in college back in like 1995, of like, how do you take some source code, strip out all the unnecessary white space so that it can still compile and execute properly. And you had to go in and figure out like where the quotes were, so you weren't stripping spaces out of strings and things like that, and still maintain compilable code at the end. And so we were dabbling with the idea of minification even back in the 90s, but, you know, it wasn't even a thing in JavaScript until, you know, like a decade ago. And minification was huge. Like it was an important thing because JavaScript was becoming so large, and so people were figuring out, like, how do we take how do we take all these individual files so we're not going back to the server every time and like fetching 100 different scripts? How can we do all of that in one and then squeeze that down as small as possible, and then maybe adding gzip compression on top of that to make that data traffic even smaller? But then you've got compression decompression time and so on as well. But it's also a thing where the server can do it once and store that and cache it, and hopefully your browser can too. But yeah, Fool also says like now you just have to wait for JavaScript to actually like go through and like compile and actually execute all your code too. So
actually, the fun part is jQuery changed a lot of things. So those people who want to say jQuery needs to die, but actually jQuery was the main reason the sizzle selector has been given to the JavaScript itself. Like for example, if you are using document.query selector or query selector all, that is actually coming from jQuery, right? That was the main inspiration behind the TC39 committee to add all these things into JavaScript as a built-in one. So literally jQuery wants to be a built-in function of JavaScript. So yeah, that's super cool, right?
Yeah. Phil says jQuery won't die. GitHub Copilot ensures it'll survive. There's probably some partnership in there, like, hey, Google Copilot, make sure when people want to do things.
Microsoft is actually going higher than this.
Good times. Well, we've been going for about an hour and a half here with Praveen.
Yes.
Really appreciate your time. We'll start to wrap up a little bit here.
I couldn't even imagine that we actually spent 1.5 hours of time talking so many things, bitching about JavaScript and jQuery now.
I mean, there's so much stuff that we can get into for sure. Like, how do you run your YouTube channel, and like, tell us a little bit more about your director role and like all this kind of stuff. Like, there's so many cool sorts of subjects that we can get into, and that's why I love having folks on the stream, just to hear different ideas and perspectives. And even if we're like commiserating about like, yeah, I also hate JavaScript, or I also hate Python, or whatever, or like, no, I love Python, what are you talking about? And we, I think it's okay to have ideas around like, how do you think a little bit differently about hiring, or how do you think a little bit differently about differentiating yourself and things like that. Let's close with a couple of tips that our viewers can kind of pay attention to around like, how would you tell somebody who's brand new to the industry and also somebody who's been in the industry for a while, because they can be a little bit different, but how would you tell somebody fresh out of school, here's how to stand out to a recruiter, versus somebody who's been in the industry for a while of here's how to really like portray that value? What kind of advice would you give people getting into the industry nowadays? Because it's getting a little bit harder than usual, especially to find that first tech job with hiring freezes and things like that. So how can somebody stand out?
And I'm also scared about the recession that's going to come. So considering all these things, yeah, DSA and CP and DP is not everything. Basically, if for people who are new to tech, and if you are newbie, try to figure out what is the best thing for you. For example, I figured out, even if you give me £1 million, I will not work on Java. So that's me. So it's true. Like, even if it is £10 million, I will not work on Java. So
I might for 10 million.
Let's see. I mean, if there is someone who can give me like 10 million, £1, maybe I could. No, I don't think so. So to that level, I'm like very strong on what exactly I will be working on, etc. So that is something which I'm looking into. And for coming to that level, what I did is since if you are a newbie, if you are in your final year of engineering, or like if you're still studying, if you don't have much responsibility, try out every single thing. So before choosing React.js as my girlfriend, what I did is I tried to create the same application, let's say a to-do application, on 3 different spas. One is Angular, one is Vue, and one is React. Angular, I absolutely hated working on that. I don't know why, because it's like completely confusing. I couldn't even wrap my heads around the syntax that they were using. Vue.js, it is mainly for model view controller people. They will love it. And for React, dude, if you are from PHP, yes, React is for you. So React was so much good for me, and it did have a bit of a separation of concern, but not much. People who are talking about separation of concern, you have Vue.js.
Interesting.
So something like that. So that is exactly what I learned. So I tried working in all the different languages before I chose this is my life. So that is something which I would like to tell. And when you try to when you try to find the love of your life in tech, try to keep on practicing it, build in public. So if there are any women in tech, meet me. I do have a huge community around what people are doing every single day, and we are actually working a lot of things on the latest technologies, even Svelte and other things. And then we are also building things in public to make sure people are not left out. We are just saying this is only for beginners, and look at this. As a beginner, you can even do these things, and it is in also an easy way. You can easily understand things. So these are a couple of things that we are trying to do, and I hope people can come in. And I mean, the supporting thing is just word of the mouth, sharing it to others. So this is what is happening. By the way, I have a proposal for you.
Okay.
Shall we do a part 2 on my channel?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah. Let's do it.
Awesome. That would be super awesome. Let's set a good timeline and try to work on those things that we have not finished in this thing. And we have also got amazing people who are giving a lot of ideas through chat. And I wish this live stream will be preserved, right, in Twitch.
Yep, absolutely. It'll be on Twitch for 60 days, but it'll go on YouTube like right after this.
Okay,
anyway,
but what about the chat? The live chat is actually the main thing. That is very good.
So the chat that's streamed by is actually part of the video, and so people will be able to see that if they go back and watch the YouTube recording afterwards. That's why I've got chat showing up over on the interface. So people watching later on can see what's happened in
okay,
chat.
that's awesome. So that's better. You are so thoughtful. Great. Cool. So great. And that's it.
Awesome.
I don't have any other things to say. And thanks a lot for patiently hearing all our rants, dev rant.
Yeah. Well, hey, shout out to Lumber Chop Man for dropping by. We'll give you some blinky lights for first time chat. Thanks for swinging by. YouTube VOD watcher. So yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for coming by. Me too. Everyone else is saying like hi to everybody on YouTube watching this later on. So if you've made it this far on YouTube, like, subscribe, do all the notification stuff. I'm horrible at marketing myself. But yeah, go if you're actually watching on Twitch, go subscribe to my YouTube channel for me as well. I'm trying to get to 1,000 people over on YouTube, and I got a couple hundred to go. So go check that out over there.
Let's get William 1,000, and let's get me 10,000, please.
Let's get you to 10,000, yeah, for sure. Well, you're only a couple of hundred away from 10,000 as well.
Yes.
So yeah, awesome. Well, Praveen, really definitely appreciate your time today. And yeah, we'll definitely push some traffic your way. Let's go find somebody we can go raid. Looks like Leon is doing some office hours, so we'll go raid over to Leon, and we'll see everybody over there. So they have slow mode on the chat, so you won't be able to chat more than like every, I think, 15 or 30 seconds or something like that. But we'll go raid over to the 100 Devs group. So say hi, be supportive, be helpful. They've got a great Discord community as well, which I'm hoping to get in on, get back to you at some point. But go hang out on office hours and go be supportive of other folks in chat that are learning about development. And we'll catch you over there. Thanks again for hanging out today. Thanks again, Praveen, for your time. Really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll definitely hook something up, and I'll come hang out on your channel too. So we'll see you over in 100 Devs in a couple minutes, and we'll see you on Thursday, folks. Have a good day.
Bye. Stay home, stay safe.